Alrighty, good Thursday afternoon to you. Welcome in, Chico Borman Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. So great to have you along, and we stream the show live Monday through Friday, noon to 2. We do so on Twitter at Chico Show CLE, also available on YouTube. If you are not a subscriber, go to YouTube, type in the Chico Borman Show, and hit subscribe, and we appreciate it. Also, wherever you get your podcast, you can subscribe. Apple, Spotify, doesn't matter. And we stream the show live also on the iHeartRadio live app, so you can get it there. We've got a lot to get to today. Always love hearing from you as well. At Big Play Chico is the Twitter handle, also at Chico Show CLE, as well as your YouTube comments as well. All right, coming up in just a few moments. Actually, I shouldn't say a few moments. About 10 minutes or so. Dan Lobby, Cleveland.com, and the Cleveland Plain Dealer on the Browns beat, always out there in Berea. And we'll get the very latest from his boots on the ground and see who's back on the practice field, who's possibly going to get named quarterback. I have no problem, by the way, with Stefanski. I think I said this the other day, but why would you say it's Joe Flacco? We know it's Joe Flacco. I think we all do. And I'm sure Jacksonville knows it's Joe Flacco, and Joe Flacco knows it's Joe Flacco, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson probably knows it's Joe Flacco. But, hey, there's certainly nothing wrong with making Jacksonville, even if it's for an hour or two, say, hey, just in case, let's make sure that we watch some film on this DTR kid. But we will talk to Dan Lobby coming up at 12:15, get the very latest there. In the 1 o'clock hour, 1:30 to be exact, the winter meetings just concluded in Nashville. And in addition to performing at the Grand Ole Opry, he's going to really appreciate me saying that. Zach Meisel from The Athletic, our good buddy, will join us, and we'll get the very latest. Some big news yesterday. Juan Soto is a member of the New York Yankees. I know you were all shocked that the Guardians weren't able to land him. It's well, they got some good news. I mean, they do have some good. Number one pick, still trying to figure out the outfield and among other things. And will they make a trade? Will they bundle prospects that we've been hearing about for 2 or 3 years? We shall see. But Zach will have the very latest on all of that as well. All right, so we begin, obviously, this Sunday showdown with Jacksonville. But I wanted to, before I get into that, and we will obviously do so in much detail with Dan Lobby in a moment, I noticed, Bohm, that you go around the NFL and a lot of the storylines, other than, the playoff race and maybe the MVP conversation, a lot of it is just chaos with a couple of organizations. The New York Jets being one, the Carolina Panthers being the other. And there is a story The Athletic did yesterday on David Tepper in Carolina, where I guess anonymous folks within the organization are calling it the Hunger Games. Now, I never saw the Hunger Games. I don't know what the Hunger Games is, but it's not a good reference. Basically, staff members, even assistants, text messaging David Tepper himself, the owner, on who needs to go, what needs to happen, what they need to do. Frank Reich is already gone. All I could think of, and again, I think it's important every now and then to put things in perspective. It wasn't, well, it was kind of long ago, but it'll never be erased from our memories. It was roughly about 10 years ago when you started hearing, yeah, you know what? Ray Farmer is texting down to the sidelines, and he's going to have to miss a few games because he was texting down to the sideline wanting to see Johnny Manziel. And, basically absolute positive dysfunction within the organization. Now, the Browns are not perfect. Jimmy and Dee Haslam are still learning. I think they've improved, but we are no longer in those doldrums. We are no longer talking about, again, the draft in December. We are no longer talking about, text messaging and who's going to be fined and who's going to be suspended and why is Alex Shiner waiting for Mike Pettin at the facility to watch film with him? Like, perspective. The Jets are talking. I mean, their quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, is calling the organization chicken shit because they may or may not have leaked stuff about Zach Wilson not wanting to play. All of that is to say this. At 7-5, and yeah, I know they've lost a couple of games, and they lost to Denver, and they lost to the Rams, and all of a sudden you're saying, wait a minute, what's wrong with the defense, and is Denzel Ward going to be back? He was practicing yesterday. More on that in a moment. Myles Garrett, how's his health? Have certain teams started to figure some things out as far as Schwartz's defense? Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's always question marks. There's always things that, you're trying to get better at. And I'm not going to lie, the last 2 weeks wasn't exactly great. But they are 7-5, and if the season ended today, would be the 7th seed. That's a far cry from what we are used to from years past. So I just wanted to kind of lay the groundwork there, just a little perspective, just a little bit. And while we have some angst and we're waiting to see how the Browns fare coming up on Sunday at home against Jacksonville, it has been a lot worse. So we've got that. Cavaliers, by the way, big win last night. I was watching part of that game, and then I got busy with some other things, and I was keeping tabs the score on my phone, not watching it, and I saw the lead kind of, it started to go down a little bit, and I'm like, no, don't do this. You can't do this. And Orlando, as we know, we talked to our buddy Jake Chapman yesterday. Orlando came in last night, winners of 9 of their last 10. But the Cavaliers hold on, get a very important win. They're all important, but some good momentum as they head out on the road. They've got Miami, they've got Orlando again, they've got 2 in Boston. So hopefully, and Donovan Mitchell, I like this guy more and more. Even after I hear him make certain comments, I think he said yesterday or last night after the game, like, you know what? We know what the blueprint is. We know what we can't do. We've obviously seen what happens when we don't do certain things. We lose games to Portland. So there's no excuses, and everybody needs to be accountable, and hopefully that will continue on a tough road swing. So we'll see what happens there as well. But, a lot of chaos, a lot of things going on throughout the NFL, and it's just kind of nice to be in the seat we are in here in Cleveland with the Browns, even though there is some angst. Denzel Ward back on the practice field. Huge news. Hopefully that shoulder is going to hold up for the rest of the season. I think we all know, we've all seen just how important he is to this defense. We knew it already, and I know that there are some that roll their eyes and, oh, man, Denzel Ward's hurt again. Yeah, I know this seemingly happens every year. If you look at his games played versus, out of the possible 100-some, it's actually a pretty fair amount. I mean, for a guy that, he goes out, even as slight as he is, like he could just completely steer away from any sort of contact. He could, the Pittsburgh game, I think, is when he injured that shoulder. And I know some people in the moment are saying, yeah, I wish he would because we need him healthy. No, you don't, because that's a big hit that he made. I think it was on Jaylen Warren. Those are the things that Denzel Ward, obviously his job is to be a lockdown corner, and he is one of the best in the business. And we know that's his number one priority. But he does other things, and, getting him back on the field is going to be important. I'm also, like many of you, on the edge of my seat waiting to see what happens with Myles Garrett. Is he going to be in the state he was in on Sunday? Is that going to pretty much be the rest of the season? We hope not, because he was basically reduced to a third down pass rush specialist. And while he is a pass rush specialist, we need him there on first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, that they have those too. So we'll see the very latest there. I know as we're talking about gamesmanship here with the Browns and Kevin Stefanski not naming a starting quarterback, in Jacksonville, they're still holding out on whether or not Trevor Lawrence will play. And we're going to talk to Dan Lobby about this, but Mary Kay had an example of a guy on the Browns as far as an ankle injury that we thought was going to – I think it was the Indianapolis game. Jerome Ford had that, I believe they termed it a high ankle sprain, and he was back the next week against Seattle. So it is possible. They're saying that Trevor Lawrence has been walking without a boot. They're saying that he feels a lot better. I mean, nowadays with all the technology and all the things that are afforded these guys, you can do a lot in 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours to make things feel better. I think the thing that's interesting about it, though, is I think it is that right ankle, which of course means that's his plant foot. And obviously for a quarterback, you're planning on that right foot and you're trying to drive the ball down the field. And if Trevor Lawrence is unable to do that, or at least not able to do that to the capacity he would want to, it would be an issue. But yeah, we shall see. Again, I think he's here right now. We want to bring him in. Is he okay? Bohm's working him in. I'm kind of jealous of Lobby's hair. I'm not going to lie. Like curls and I mean, he kind of has it's kind of a Dierks Bentley thing going on there, Bohm. You know what I mean? And here's me, Mr. Clean here. Dan Lobby of Cleveland.com and the Cleveland Plain Dealer. He's out in Berea right now covering the Browns, as he is each and every day, and does tremendous work. Dan, great to have you, buddy. How you doing?
Well, great to be here. And I'll be honest, I'm sitting outside in the wind, so I'm actually a little jealous of your hair right now, if we want to say that.
But see, now there is no hair. It's not even blowing though. Oh, there it is. Okay, now we got a stiff breeze out there. All right, I'll tell you what. Let's we pretty much started off talking about the injury front, and I think that's where we probably should begin here. Yesterday brought some welcome news out there in terms of Denzel Ward. He was on the practice field. What can you tell us about him and some of the other walking wounded?
Well, obviously with Ward, it's a great sign that he is back on the practice field, and this team badly needs him back. When they didn't IR him, it was pretty indicative that he was going to be back within 2 to 3 weeks. So to get him back in this game would be huge. The big one to keep an eye on is Amari Cooper. He was not out there at practice when we were just out there a few minutes ago. So he's still working through the concussion protocol. And Amari's as tough as they come, but unfortunately, this is out of his hands. He's got to stay true to the protocol. He can't just play if he wants to play. He's got to get out of it. So that's the one to really keep an eye on there. And then look, obviously with DTR, he's still in the protocol. I'm sure we're going to get to this. I don't think he's going to be the starting quarterback on Sunday, but I think you'd like to have him available to maybe put in some packages and things like that, and maybe do some different things with him. So, really Amari's the big one that I'm watching though, because this receiving core is in trouble if it doesn't have Amari Cooper.
Okay, let's have one more. We'll do one more thought on Amari here before we do talk about that QB situation. Is he still dealing with the ribs on top of the concussion, Dan?
Yeah, he was dealing with the ribs still last week, and I'm sure they're still barking at him a little bit too. I know those X-rays were negative, but we've all had bruised ribs or whatever he's dealing with. We've all taken shots to the ribs, and we know that hurts. It's uncomfortable. It's definitely got to be tough to play an NFL football game. So yeah, it's ribs and the concussion. But again, like I said, Amari, he'll play through the ribs, but the concussion is a different animal.
Right. Dan Lobby joining us. He's with Cleveland.com and the Cleveland Plain Dealer out in Berea as we speak. You can see that's not a fake shot behind him, kids. That's real life Berea, Ohio, as the Browns get ready to practice.
It's beautiful this time of year, isn't it?
It is. It is picturesque is what I was thinking of looking at that. All right, so let's get to it. I think it's even if we all think it's obvious that it's going to be Joe Flacco, and we all think it probably should be Joe Flacco. I see no issue with Kevin Stefanski. Hey, even if it's 1 or 2 hours that Jacksonville has to spend, going, well, you know what? We have to put this in case we've got DTR in there. So him not naming a starting quarterback isn't that big of a deal, but are you kind of like the rest of us thinking that it probably is going to be Big Joe Flacco?
I think all signs are pointing to it being Flacco. He's taken most of the first team reps that we've seen, and we obviously don't see team drills, but he's usually been first up when we've watched him practice. He's going to talk today, so that's pretty indicative that he's probably going to be the starter as well. I don't know if he'll spill the beans or if he'll be. I'm sure he's been instructed, don't say you're going to start. But I'm with you. I don't have a problem if this is gamesmanship or if this is Kevin kind of being, doing a courtesy for DTR until he gets out of the protocol to kind of make this announcement and this decision. I have no issue with them not naming the starting quarterback because they know who it's going to be and they're able to plan around that. So just because we don't know, it doesn't mean that they don't know. So I fully expect Joe Flacco to be the starter. And the reality is, I don't know how you could go back to DTR in the middle of a playoff race right now after what Joe Flacco showed you on Sunday.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that because what really astounded me, like it's one thing to have the arm strength still. I didn't think he just all of a sudden was going to be, just a dink and dunk type thrower. But what really impressed me, and I think even Sanchez said it a lot on the broadcast, was just how polished he looked. Like the little nuances, a play action fake and carrying it out, and he looked polished. He looked extremely comfortable, and no signs that he had been out for as however long as he had been. So that was just extremely encouraging.
Yeah, I think that's the best the play action game has looked all year. And Kevin Stefanski has to love that because that's his bread and butter. And just the accuracy, I think about that Njoku throw, the one that got overturned on the replay because he had a toe out of bounds before he caught it. That was an incredible throw. And I was blown away by throws like that. There was one to Amari Cooper before he was even out of his break. Like the timing on some of these throws for guys that he's been working with for a week. It was really, really impressive for him to come in and do that. And the final stat line maybe wasn't incredible, right? You want him to be a little more efficient. You obviously don't want the turnovers, but I think you live with those when you're playing with a big armed quarterback. He's only going to get better from here as that timing gets better and all of that stuff gets better. So I was blown away by, I think the total on his passing yard was like 198.5, and he just blew by that. So I was really impressed with what Joe did coming off the couch and playing like he did.
And, we talked about Amari Cooper, and certainly something to keep our eye on as we get ready for Sunday against Jacksonville, and there is no replacing Amari Cooper. What is interesting, though, and I kind of forgot about Marquise Goodwin, to be honest with you, but he comes back, and look, when we talk about Marquise Goodwin, there's fast, and then there's world-class fast, and that's what Marquise Goodwin is. It is kind of intriguing now. I mean, you want Amari back, and hopefully he will be back, but nonetheless, he does give you, Marquise Goodwin does, that opportunity to take the top off of defense, and we all know that Joe Flacco doesn't mind taking those shots every now and then.
Yeah, and they've had trouble when Goodwin's been on the field to getting him the football. And then, of course, he has the concussion. He dealt with the blood clots in training camp. It's been a frustrating year for him, but having him back on the practice field, that's great to see. And that was something I said yesterday, just seeing number 3 back out there. Like, hey, could Joe Flacco unlock this a little bit? Could we finally get to see a little Marquise Goodwin down the field that we just haven't seen all season long for various reasons? And I do wonder, like, even with a guy like David Njoku, could he maybe unlock Njoku a little bit if he could start hanging on to the football and can we start to see Njoku start to take those steps? So I think it'll be really interesting if, here comes Joe Flacco in from nowhere and he just revives this passing game and gets some of these guys that we've been saying over and over again, like, man, I just want to see this guy get going. If Flacco can get all of those guys going, it would be a very Browns scenario in a good way. But yeah, Goodwin is a guy, as soon as I saw him out there, like, okay, this could be a match made in heaven.
A few more minutes with Dan Lobby. You can follow him on Twitter, by the way, at Dan_Lobby. And, of course, he's also co-host with Mary Kay and Ashley of the Orange and Brown Talk. Very, very good podcast that I am a regular listener of and get all the latest information there. Okay, Trevor Lawrence is also kind of, we don't know what's going to happen with him. I was talking when you were coming on there that it is his right ankle. While he does feel pretty good, that is his plant foot, which I think if you would say which one do you want to have, it would probably be the other one for him. What is the mindset right now for the Browns, and how are they preparing? What are they saying as far as Trevor Lawrence coming up on Sunday?
Yeah, Jim Schwartz talked about that but right before practice, and he was saying with Trevor, you don't know what you're going to get if you're even going to get him. Are you going to get a mobile Lawrence, a non-mobile Lawrence, or are you going to get C.J. Beathard? So it makes the game plan a little bit bigger. It makes it a little tougher this week, but the good news is some of their bread and butter stuff that they're used to doing, they don't have to spend as much time on. I keep thinking, this is a big game for both teams. Houston and Indy are bearing down on Jacksonville in the division race. If Jacksonville falls out of that AFC South lead, they're in the wild card muck with the Browns. So this is a big game. And if this were the wild card round or the divisional round, I don't think there would be any question that Trevor Lawrence would play. So there's just a part of me that feels like if he can go, he's going to try and give it a go, because this isn't a playoff game, but it is December football. And it's a big one. So I would imagine he's going to try to give it a go. But the reality is that this is a quarterback that does rely on his mobility in some ways. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Jalen Hurts. He's not one of those guys, but he does need to move around, and he uses his legs a lot. So even if they get Trevor Lawrence, it's not going to be 100% Trevor Lawrence. And I think that's going to benefit the Browns in a big way.
Dan, when we look at the defense, look, I don't think it's means to panic by any means, but we saw them earlier in the year, and at times this year have just been record breaking and so dominant. Is it as easy as saying, well, Denzel Ward was out and Myles Garrett, by the way, before I go any further, is Myles Garrett, like we did not expect to see him reduced to kind of a specialist role there. How is he coming along to the best of your knowledge?
Everybody's saying he's healthy. Everybody's saying that it wasn't the shoulder. Myles was saying it wasn't the shoulder. Jim Schwartz today was saying it wasn't the shoulder, that it was the game plan. It was getting the ball out quick. It was focusing on him. I personally, I don't believe it. I think that shoulder has to affect him, even if it's not maybe as serious as we all thought it was. Like if you're an edge rusher and you get chipped like Myles does, and you get hit like Myles does on every play, you're going to feel that. So I don't necessarily believe that that's not affecting him and limiting him. So everybody's saying the right things right now, but we know that Myles has dealt with injuries before, and we've kind of seen what a reduced Myles can look like. And you'd rather have him out there than not, even if he's not the Myles Garrett we're used to seeing. But I do think that shoulder, this could be one of those things where we get to the end of the year and finally everybody admits, yeah, that shoulder was a little bit of a problem.
So obviously we hope that he's going to be in better form coming up on Sunday, but we go back to the defense. You guys, I thought, did a great breakdown, film breakdown, Cleveland.com, as far as, what are teams starting to do against Jim Schwartz, and what are some things that they've maybe tried to take advantage of. What do you think those are, and kind of talk about some of the things that teams have tried to do against this defense, and how Jim Schwartz might now try to counter that?
I think it starts with neutralizing the pass rush. That's the very first thing. That's what a Jim Schwartz defense thrives on. You need to neutralize the pass rush. And what we've seen a little bit with Russell Wilson, and definitely a ton with Matthew Stafford, is be decisive, get the ball out quickly. Don't let them get to you. If that time to throw is down, they don't have time to get to the quarterback. So you reduce the pressure. The sack numbers have not been there outside of Myles Garrett. Zadarius is under 3. I think Obo Okoronkwo is the second leading sacker at 3.5. So they need to get a little more sack production out of guys. But it always starts up front with this defense. And then on the back end, look, I thought they struggled a little bit without Denzel Ward. And, I love Martin Emerson. I think he's a great player, or has the potential to become a great player, I should say, but he's still a young guy. He's still developing. And I do think there's some matchups maybe that aren't great for him because he's a little bit of a bigger corner. So I think they missed Denzel Ward, but I don't think that's an excuse for what's going on the back end necessarily. So it's just sort of that pass rush and then the back end of the defense being married together. And I think at times against the Rams, they both sort of faltered. But it always, with the Jim Schwartz defense, it starts up front. If you're not getting pressure, that's going to affect the rest of that defense.
To continue with the secondary for a moment, Greg Newsome, who is an outstanding corner, I think we can make the argument, feel pretty good about it, that while he is a great corner wherever he's at in the field, he's certainly much better in the slot. And all this does with Denzel being out is kind of, you're forcing guys to play in areas where they wouldn't be as good. Is that a fair statement as far as Newsome's concerned?
Yeah, I think that hits the nail right on the head with Newsome. I know he's a guy that's kind of bristled a little bit at having to play the slot, but I do think that's where he really fits in this defense, especially with Denzel and Martin Emerson on the outside. I think Greg Newsome in the slot is ideal. And look, I sometimes Greg Newsome will take some heat if he gets beat, things like that. I think he's a guy that can play. I think he's a good player, and I think you want him on your defense, but he's got to be in the right role. And I think the slot is the right role for him. And I think we've definitely seen that over the last 2 weeks. When he's on the outside, it can be a little shaky. When this defense is whole and you hope they're starting to get a little healthier on that back end, and he's able to play in the slot, that really gives you a pretty formidable 3 guys there that you can use against more spread out offenses.
Dan, we'll get you out of here with this, buddy, and I appreciate your time. Okay, so 5 games remain. They're at 7-5. The differing opinions on what that magic number, if there is one, that gets them in. Like, do you have kind of a number in mind? Do the Browns have? I'm sure they're not even talking about that, but I'll ask you, what is your magic number that the Browns seemingly would have to get to be in the postseason?
I'm guessing it's the number everyone is saying. I think you got to get to 10.
Yeah.
I think you start there. If you can find 3 more wins, and I think you can find 3 more wins, especially if you've kind of figured out how to cobble together this quarterback thing. If you can get to 10, you can kind of let things sort out a little bit. And you've got some tiebreakers there. There's a couple that you don't have, but I think you have enough that if you get to 10, you can get in. Now, this Trevor Lawrence thing makes it very interesting because maybe this becomes a game you can steal all of a sudden. And now you're starting to talk, okay, how do we get to 11? Which makes me think of Spinal Tap. But if you can get to 10 wins, you're going to have a chance. And I think that's where it starts. Find 3 wins out of these last 5.
Boom, you love that reference, man. You love that.
It goes to 11.
Hey, Dan, first of all, great to have you on the show, and we should have done this a long time ago, and that's on me. But looking forward to talking to you here in the future. You guys do outstanding work with Cleveland.com, and I mean that. Orange and Brown Talk. I love that podcast. Keep up the good work, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Love all the things you guys are doing over at Big Play too. It's great to see.
Thanks, Dan. Take care, buddy. All right.
All right. Thanks a lot.
That is Dan Lobby out in Berea as the Browns get set to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back, get some reaction as to what he had to say, and also continue with some more stuff on the Jaguars. There's some interesting things coming out of Jacksonville that we want to talk about. It has nothing to do with on the field, and there's a joke involved in there somewhere. We'll tell you what that is. We'll be back with more Chico Borman Show. More to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. So Dan Lobby draws comparisons to Dierks Bentley, and I draw comparisons to what? Scott Van Pelt, basically.
Yeah, that's what yeah.
Sometimes life's not fair, Bo. You know? It just
Oh, don't I know it?
you just gotta kind of roll with the punches. I mean, again, there was a time, but even when there was hair atop this head, it wasn't the curls and the wavy. I didn't have that. I mean, that's just man. But to each his own. We carry on. Good. Go ahead, Bo.
I was just gonna say it was kind of grunge. I'm into it.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that does kind of that would be your look, and he can pull that off. Like he
totally.
obviously does pull that off. But good stuff for him on the Browns. All right, we'll get this out of the way right now. There is no one, I don't care how optimistic you are, that believes that Myles Garrett just had a sore throat, and that's why he was only being deployed on third downs. I get it. They don't need to say it because, again, it's gamesmanship, and you don't want to see people, guys taking shots at it, even though they do. It's you're on the field. It's basically war, and you're going to do whatever you can to get the advantage. So they know that he's hurting. No need to add more to that. But there's nobody out there that believes. I can't be the only one. Well, Lobby said it too. It's bothering him, and I said this before, say it again now, and I hate saying it, but you get the sense that this is just something that's going to just be with him for however long this season lasts. You just hope it gets a little bit better, or he's a little bit more able to tolerate the pain, whatever it might be. I mean, Myles Garrett is as tough as they come, but he is so dominant, boom, that if he's nowhere near 100%, and God forbid is only going to be available on certain downs, that defense takes a huge, huge hit.
Yeah, and we saw the inability to get pressure on Stafford when we knew that was the key because he has poor numbers when pressured. But he was able to get the ball out really quick. And so that's where I think Denzel Ward is going to become so crucial in that hopefully he can allow for more coverage pressures, right? Making the quarterback hold on to the ball longer.
Yeah. I think that's, as Dan said, and I've always said this too, and I totally agree. Like when we talk about the defense and you say, well, is it more about the D-line? Is it more about the secondary? When you can marry those two, you have a great defense. And we've seen the Browns be dominant this year. Those two have been married. You've had, great pressure up front. You've had great coverage on the back end, and that just makes life hell for opposing quarterbacks, opposing offenses. I think this is where you've got to, guys, he mentions Zadarius Smith hasn't really, and I know, look, is it much easier when the focus is on Myles Garrett? Sure. But those guys are getting paid a lot of money too. The Browns, whether it be trade resources, money resources, they went out and they know that they needed to bolster. They knew they needed to bolster that defensive line, that pass rush, obviously on the interior too, as far as shoring up the run defense. But it's time for those guys now to pick up the slack. And it's not to say that they're, the effort wasn't there the last 2 weeks, but I think it's pretty clear. I hope I'm wrong, but yeah, I mean, he's the way, as Dan described it, getting chipped. And for those, obviously don't know, it's a tight end comes by or somebody just helps to block him down on the line. They're coming in to chip him. They're just trying to get some sort of body on him, multiple bodies on him. And when that happens, you're going to hit the turf occasionally. You're going to have the shoulder hit. That's just, man, it's one of those things where this is still a great defense, and Denzel Ward being on the field is going to be huge. But it goes without saying. I mean, Myles Garrett's production, his value to this team and that defense is just you can't even quantify it. whether it's 2-3 blockers, whether it's – I mean, your entire game plan. It's not like the Browns don't have a lot of guys to worry about on defense, but if you're an offensive coordinator, it's no secret 95 is getting that green dot, right? He's getting that, okay, this is the guy that we've got to somehow, some way, find a way to slow down. Well, it turns out the only thing that can slow down Myles Garrett is Myles Garrett. And I'm hoping he's going to take it easy this week as far as practice. I mean, that's makes no sense to have him out there, and they won't. I'm really hoping that there's treatment that he gets, and it's one of those things that he can get better, at least to go out there. Because if he's just on third downs, boom, their schedule is still very advantageous. Okay, you've got Jacksonville, you've got Chicago, you've got Houston on the road. That'll be tough. You've got the Jets at home. The Jets are an absolute dumpster fire, and then you go on the road and you've got to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. But inopportune time. It is late in the season. It happens, but that has me a little bit worried.
I think that uncertainty is frustrating, and it's kind of like the Deshaun situation earlier in the year, right? When it was just day to day. We don't know if he's going to be ready. We don't know if he's going to be 100%. And it's very eerily similar vibes with Myles Garrett, where that uncertainty of, can he actually get even close to 100% right now? Because this Myles Garrett that we got last Sunday, it's just not good enough. Like, honestly, at some point, if he is that little of an impact, they have to consider putting someone in over him.
Well, yeah, and I think I said this on Monday. I mean, I don't want them to, and I look, Myles wants to play. Everybody wants Myles to play. But Myles, as unbelievable as he is, cannot play with one arm. I mean, it is the National Football League. He can't play with one arm. And essentially, it looked like he was playing with one arm to the point where, it was third down, and then it was just he's getting yanked, period. If we knew, and we don't know, and they're not going to say, and I totally get that, if we knew that this is a situation for Myles that, hey, if you give him a couple weeks off and then he'll be back to old Myles, then I think you go ahead and do that. But this is where it's, if it's, how many times are we going to talk about structural damage and shoulders and this year? But, if it's not something that he can injure further, then, you're going to want him out there. He's going to want to be out there. I mean, this guy works his ass off. He's made no secret. Not only does he want the Browns to do well, he wants to win Defensive Player of the Year. And good for him for saying it and wanting it. But at what point do you hurt Myles and hurt the team if he just can't even be a shell of himself? We'll see. As far as the offensive, the game plan, Amari Cooper, concussion protocol. We can talk about, playing through pain and playing through this concussion protocol. It either you get out of it or you're still in it. It's that simple. The league is taking it very seriously, as they should. My understanding is by the end of the week or at some point, you've got to go obviously full speed, but then even beyond that, there's other drills and other stuff that they put you through to really stress you to see if he's able to go. And the fact that he's got the ribs, I mean, those ribs were really, really bothering him before too. So these are some key guys when you factor in, the importance of these guys on each side of the ball. Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward on the defensive side, Amari Cooper. These are as good as it gets. These are your stars. These are your go-to guys. Don't want to be without those guys. Now, as far as the receiver room, Marquise Goodwin getting back. You heard Dan say it, and it has been an issue. Them trying to, get the ball to Marquise Goodwin, but unable to get the ball to Marquise Goodwin, whether it be just, they're not on the same page with him or, he does run very, very fast. So maybe sometimes you just think, well, maybe I can't I can't throw this ball too far. But it will be fun if Joe Flacco is able to connect with that. But, yeah, Amari Cooper's now all of a sudden you're looking down the line. David Bell's going to have to step up. Cedric Tillman's going to have to step up. They have the capabilities. Certainly Tillman does. Those guys are going to be counted on, and they're going to be counted on to fill that void. It's not going to be easy, and we don't know that he's out yet. But at the very least, if he's there, he's going to be hobbled. There's no question.
Yeah, you mentioned Tillman. He got a lot of targets from Flacco last week. I imagine that's only going to continue to build. Tillman and Moore, to me, are going to be so crucial to this. And then also the usage of David Njoku, who came into this game as the team's leading receiver. They started to give him more touches as the game got later on, but he was very quiet in that first half. And so I'm curious to see if they want to get him more engaged early as well. Harrison Bryant, obviously the benefactor of a touchdown, so it's not about the usage of tight ends. But.
How much do you think the running game will, and again, let's just say that Amari, we don't want to say this, but let's say he's out. How much does Kevin Stefanski lean on the run game? I mean, or does he want? I mean, I think with Joe Flacco, and I totally get it, he finally has a guy that can stretch the field, that can make you bite on play action. But I would say, too, if you're able to run the ball on top of him being able to carry that out so well and so precisely, that it makes him even more dangerous. But I don't care. It's December. It's Cleveland. It's going to be probably, I don't know what the weather is exactly, but my guess is somewhat relative to what we have today. You want to be able to ground and pound. You want to be able to go out there and run the football and get violent with Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong. Yes, Joe Flacco is going to be counted on to make throws, no doubt. But I would really lean towards Kevin Stefanski really making an effort to try to establish that running game early and often.
Yeah, I do agree that I think it's critical. We saw the impact that it had when it was just almost entirely ineffective against the Rams. And however, after after Flacco was able to connect on a couple of those deep balls, I think you saw that they were able to
If he reminds you of Burrow, it's okay, Bo.
I will say he probably, arguably, has a stronger arm than Joe Burrow. So I'll give Joe that. I'm mixing up my Joes.
Yeah, your Joes are your Joes.
Yeah, I didn't have my cup of Joe this morning. So
is that why you're really sweaty? You need that coffee or something.
Well, I think the coffee would actually make me sweat more. It's just kind of warm in here.
Yeah, it is kind of warm.
And there's a breeze right there too. If we could just redirect that breeze, give me some filtration, Chico.
Filtration. All right.
Aeration.
Usually that's in water, but Bohm wants filtration to be used with the.
I want that.
It is a filter, so
that aeration filtration sent my way.
Yeah.
I forget what point I was making though.
Talking about Joe Flacco versus Joe Burrow. No, it's okay. I think we'll stop you. We'll
Pardon
save
my
you.
ADHD.
No. It's okay, buddy. It's all right. I certainly like the Browns' chances this weekend, even more so. That's the other thing. We talk about Myles Garrett. If he plays, he's going to be compromised. I would think Trevor Lawrence, who at first when I saw this injury from last week, I didn't think there was against Cincinnati. I didn't think there was any way that he was going to play on Sunday. I mean, keep in mind that happened on Monday night. So on top of it all, it's a short week. Now, Jacksonville didn't exactly help him because they didn't have cards available. But, watching him when the injury happened, watching him afterwards, you thought there's no way this dude's going to be ready by Sunday. Even if he is ready and he is looking better and feeling better, he's still not going to be 100%. You can shoot him up, and he's a tough kid and blah, 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 but he's going to be compromised. And, running quarterbacks have given the Browns, they usually give a lot of teams issues, but when you're as aggressive as the Browns are, a mobile guy is going to make life pretty difficult on you, or at least that's the game plan. Trevor Lawrence being hobbled could be a huge advantage if his mobility, if he does play, if his mobility is really restricted.
Just for some clarification with the cart thing in Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, when he addressed the media yesterday, he said he refused the cart. He didn't want it, which he also admitted like maybe was a dumb decision. But he actually refused the cart and acknowledged that they did have them like in the stadium.
But see, okay,
I was thinking about asking you that on Fair or Foul.
I don't doubt. Well, I do kind of doubt that because the reports we got, like at the next day, everybody was all over that, right? I mean, it was low hanging fruit, but it was low hanging fruit that you had to pick and you had to talk about. They weren't like people went back and were looking like where are they at? So like I don't doubt that. Yeah, they may have had, but that's one of those things like they're readily visible, available on the sideline. It looked like it was in a storage shed somewhere, like 2 miles away. I don't know. I mean, he's not gonna throw the team under the bus. He's not Aaron Rodgers, for God's sake.
I do wonder though, like the fact that he actually spoke to the media. I don't know how revealing one might find that, but to me, like they're at the very least playing the same level of gamesmanship that the Browns are doing with like Myles Garrett or what they did with Deshaun Watson in the past. Where
well, he's going to talk to the media anyway.
I mean, if it was like a really bad injury where he definitely wasn't playing, I feel like he wouldn't address the media. But this is something where he's really trying to come back for this, or he's trying to deceive the Browns into preparing for him when he's not going to actually be there.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence versus C.J. Beathard is a very big difference. Very well, and not just drop off. I mean, yeah, that goes without saying, but I mean just styles. And it's interesting because really the same could be said for what the Browns are looking at with Flacco and DTR. All right, did you see this story out of Jacksonville that an employee stole $22 million, and of course the joke everybody's using is, yes, well, we already knew that. His name is Urban Meyer. No, it's not Urban Meyer. How did he, was it like a credit card? How did he do it? Or are they saying that he allegedly did it?
Well, it sounded like he spent it. Yeah, it was some access to like some kind of company card or something. And he spent it on a variety of things, like a luxury car and a really expensive, like $96,000 watch. And
so he did a great job of hiding it, like not drawing attention to himself with really nice cars. And I mean, yeah, I guess you want to go out there and enjoy it if you're going to put your life on the line, which he has by doing so. But you probably don't want to wear brand new, sparkly 6-figure watches and well into 6-figure cars. That would be my advice. I got
Chico. It's like that scene in Goodfellas when one of the people in the mob buys his wife that huge, expensive, like elegant fur coat, and then Joe Pesci makes him return it, take it back because it's like you're giving yourself away, and then he wound up getting burned for it.
Like, here's what I want to know. I mean, stealing at any level, no matter the monetary, however much is stolen, but did he honestly think that, like, I know the owners, Shad Khan is rich and they're all rich, but did he honestly think he wouldn't see 22 million? Like 22,000, I think it's still gonna. I mean, there are people that really do, dot the I's, cross the T's, and make sure. 22 million? Like, I mean, what are you thinking, dude?
Yeah, they need to make a movie about this or something, Chico. I want the 30 for 30 lowdown on what all like played out here. How long ago did this scheme start? How long did it take for them to realize, hey, wait a second, we're sensing a discrepancy here.
So he held various titles. His name is Amit Patel. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I don't think he really cares at this point. He's got
bigger fish to fry.
His name is just going to be a number here very soon. Most recently, a manager, financial planning and analysis used his position as the sole overseer of the franchise's VCC program. I don't know what the VCC is. Something, I'm sure. It sounds very important. The The Jaguars were not named in the court filing, but the team confirmed it is the entity identified as Business A. So, oh my God. What?
Sounds like this guy had a role where he could kind of just like work on his own and not have to reveal too much.
Yeah, and like my first thought is, and I'm not making light of these situations. Like, oh man, did he have gambling debts? Was somebody out to get him? In that case, I mean, I know it's not the easy thing to do, and it's certainly easier said than done. But like I said, Shad Khan, who in my opinion, resembles Chef Boyardee, both very rich men. You just at that point you go to the owner, see if maybe there's some, but to think that you're gonna get away with pilfering $22 million. It alleges that he became the sole administrator in October of 2019, and the VCC program is a payment method that functions like a traditional credit card account, but without a physical credit card. So
he was just siphoning money from that.
So it says he's accused. I'm sorry to go in the weeds on this, kids, but this is fascinating to me. He's accused of duplicating legitimate expenses in an electronic ledger, inflating amounts of legitimate transactions, and entering fictitious transactions, then using the money for personal purchases. So you duplicate an expense. Obviously, they're going to see that. Like, yeah, we got the hotel bill for $2,400 and then $2,400 again. Oh, wait, I need to call I know that from looking at my bank statements. Like, wait a minute. No, you guys charged me twice. Okay. Wow. That is, it's not good. Now, not that it affects the players. On Sunday, they're more concerned right now with Trevor Lawrence and getting ready for the Browns. But, man, $22 million. There's a lot of innocent bystanders out in the roaming the halls today. There's a lot of food out there too, Bohm.
It smells so good, Chico.
I think it's
making me hungry.
And hopefully it is, because we want to give a shout out to these people. But there's a lot of what looks to be veterans dressed up in their uniforms that are here. I mean, Bohm, I'm not going to lie, and sorry for going off here a little bit, but I'm not going to lie. Like, they're not just bringing like little handfuls of Cheez-Its down here. They've got a pretty nice spread going down there.
It smells like Thanksgiving right now at Burke Lakefront Airport.
Yes, it really does. And people are very interested in seeing what's going on in here. Like, they walk by, they see the camera, they see this bald guy going, why the hell would you put that guy on camera? And then they're like, wow, Browns helmet, so they're intrigued. And I want to say, we will tell you everything you need to know, want to know, if you simply make us a plate. But I feel like that would be, really Bush League, and that'd be like the guy that stole $22 million from the Jacksonville Jaguars.
You know what, Chico? I don't think it's that bad. I think this is more of like I'll help you, you help me sort of deal.
But if it's leftover, like if they're getting ready to get rid of it, but I'd feel really bad if a veteran walked in and he's hanging out with his buddies. And he's like, oh, yeah, you guys, what is that? They got corned beef over. Oh, actually, you know what? That guy down there, the bald guy, just took the last one. Now then I wouldn't be able to live with myself.
I did see some people walking away with food in like containers.
Yeah.
So there are leftovers. It's clearing out.
This is pretty pathetic. This is what we have gone to. But the smells are, it's drifting in. It's drifting in.
You know how it is when you're in someone's house and they're cooking and you smell it coming from the kitchen. It's hard not to think about it.
Like, I usually come into work. I don't eat breakfast. I usually come into work hungry because I don't need to eat breakfast.
Same.
Because I'm kind of gaining a few pounds. Plus, the metabolism isn't what it once was. So by the time I leave the station and get out of here, I'm usually very hungry. Now I'm like super hungry because of those smells. So, all right, we're going to take a break. And no, we're not taking a break so we can go we would not do that. We would not go to commercial break to walk down to check out the spread. We are going to take a break.
Come back and you have a full mouth of food. Welcome back to the show.
Well, and it's fair or foul. So it'll work out where I can just nod my head fair, shake my head no for foul. Bohm will be responsible for all of the content for this next segment. Anyway, we've got Zach Meisel coming your way, 1:30. Guardians and the rest of baseball convened in Nashville, Tennessee, site of the winter meetings. No, Guardians didn't make a whole lot of news. Actually, they did, though, with the lottery. We'll talk to Zach about that and much, much more coming up at 1:30. Chico Borman Show, more to come. Oh, it smells just delicious in here, right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Alrighty, welcome back. Chico Borman Show here as we roll into the second hour on this Thursday, getting closer and closer to Sunday's showdown against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Browns 7-5, 5 games left. I'm with Lobby, and I don't mean to go against my boy Shook, because I was thinking about possibly 11. Put it this way. I would think more towards 11 than I would EK, who yesterday said 9. But I'm with Lobby. I still think 10 is that magic number. I think they can get in with 10. So 3 of the 5 have to happen, beginning, hopefully, this weekend with Jacksonville. Let me just, before we get to fair or foul, Boom, let me get to this, because Big Mike on Twitter says this, and I'm genuinely curious, like, if people agree with this. He says, with the Browns wide receiver core getting thin after Amari Cooper's injury, you have to imagine that they're wishing they had kept Anthony Schwartz. His speed and elite hands would be great right now to help lead us to the playoffs. Still a terrible move by AB. All right, I'll be honest with you. I didn't see I did not see where he said elite hands.
Oh, you missed that detail, huh?
Elite hands? I mean,
Are you respond?
I have to.
That's totally foul, Chico. I'll take this one.
No. It is a good fair foul, but it just came up when we came back. No, they're not I mean, forget about the elite hands, which is stupid because he has anything but elite hands. He has great little hands. And I like Anthony Schwartz. I know you really liked him a lot. He does have world-class speed, but world-class speed doesn't mean a damn thing if you don't catch the football. So, no, I don't think people – you can blame Andrew Berry for a few things, but no way. No way.
A better case could be made for Kadero Hodge. I mean, he's still in the league making plays. I want to say he's on Atlanta now. Kadero Hodge, I felt like the Browns had something. Plus, I love the air guitar celebration. That was always fun.
Do we think it's a burner account? This is no, but I've seen this. This guy is on. Hang on a second.
Does he have a real profile picture? I mean, not that could still be fake. But.
It says Big Mike. He doesn't look real big. He does. You always got to worry. He's an Emmy Award winner. It says Nashville, Tennessee. Emmy Award winner, writer for At 615 Film.
Huh.
Dog Pound Daily, Titan Dog, host, Big Braves. What? I mean, if you're an Emmy Award winner, God bless you. That's huge. But I don't think it's a burner account. Elite hands. That is interesting. All right, Bohm. With that, we lead into fair or foul. What do you got for me?
I need Big Mike to show his work here. Like, how could you possibly deduce that Anthony Schwartz has elite hands?
I mean, if he says, like, look, I'm just trying to screw with people, but this looks legitimate. Now, maybe I'm just gullible, but it looks like legitimate, like he really liked it.
Maybe he's just trying to get a rise out of you. Anyway, okay, Chico. I want to ask you firstly, so after that dominating performance by the San Francisco 49ers over the Philadelphia Eagles, which felt personal going back to last year for the Eagles, I feel like it's fair to say that the 49ers right now are the best team in football. But after what you saw out of the Eagles, Chico, fair or foul, Philadelphia is the second best team in football right now.
Foul. I'd put the Baltimore Ravens ahead of them. Baltimore... And I know they lost Mark Andrews. They're coming off a bye last week, which, if you're going to get a bye this late in the season and you're still where they're at, they're looking good to win the division. I mean, the AFC isn't anything what we thought it was. And San Francisco, clearly number one. Philadelphia's got some issues. I mean, they're off. It's not just like, Jalen Hurts isn't playing up to his capabilities. He's not. But the offensive line, which has been dominant, has not been very good the last couple of weeks. I'd give the nod right now, and you're asking me right now, I'd go Baltimore 2 over Philadelphia. You agree or disagree?
I do agree. And even though the Eagles have
I think
the best...
you're just saying that.
No, Chico, even though the Eagles do have the best record in football right now, I think that it's been shaky how they got there. And I think in the past I've compared it to they're almost the opposite of what the Steelers were earlier in the year in terms of always finding a way to win, despite the fact that there's no way that you actually should have won that game or a bunch of those games if you're Pittsburgh. So Philadelphia, I don't have a lot of they don't look dominant. They're winning games, but they don't look dominant doing it.
No, and it was one thing. Here's the thing. We've been saying all year long, and look, there's a lot of teams that do take a while to get going. But ironically, it's funny, the two teams from the Super Bowl last year, Kansas City deserved the pass. They still deserve the pass because, they're going to figure it out, right? It's Patrick Mahomes. Now, you're starting to wonder about who's going to step up that wide receiver position and help them out on offense. But like we said the same thing about those two teams. Hey, that's a long season, Super Bowl, a little bit of a hangover. They'll get into gear in October. Give them a month. Well, you know what? Too much. Give them November. I'll tell you what. By Thanksgiving, they're going to be cooking. They're not. And like I said, the strength of their team, they've got a pretty good defense. I don't mean to say it's dominant, but the strength of their team is obviously Jalen Hurts. You have two stud wideouts in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but your offensive line is kind of what makes it go. That's where I'd be nervous right now if I'm an Eagles fan. So I've got to go with Baltimore too.
Now, something interesting that happened in that game that isn't exactly related to the in-game action, but Eagles head of security, Dom DeSandro.
I love this.
Yeah, so you saw that. Dre Greenlaw basically, I didn't see it in live, full speed, but he kind of slapped him?
He didn't slap him. He kind of he pointed and his finger. Yeah, it wasn't, but he did. I mean, he did touch his face. There's no doubt he touched his face, but it wasn't like a smack or a punch or anything like that.
Now, this, of course, on the heels of DeSandro trying to break up a little scrummage, a kerfuffle, if you will, Chico.
Yeah. Scrummage.
Yes. A fracas. Chico, I want to know, fair or foul, do you think that DeSandro's actions of trying to break up the fight were justified? So I should also mention that the NFL came out afterwards, and there's no precedent to this really.
No.
But it's afterwards. The NFL released a memo to teams, basically saying that security under no circumstances should get involved. But since that precedent was not set up to this point, do you think that the actions of DeSandro were fair?
Here's the thing, though. He really wasn't in. I mean, he was on the sideline. He didn't get involved until Greenlaw made him involved. I mean, what I don't know what if. And again, I'm not going to say that I've seen this 15 times, but I probably watched it 3 or 4, and it looks to me like he's standing. Now, if you want to say he shouldn't be where he's at on the sideline, then okay, that might be a different topic, a different discussion. But he's just standing there, and then I do think he probably said a few things because Greenlaw was kind of chirping too, but then he just flat out pointed at him, but was close enough where he hit his face. All I know is this: that what's his last name? DeSandro.
Yes.
He's an icon now in Philly. They've got shirts. I guess he already was pretty popular. People in Philly know who he is. I mean, this dude is what you would expect for this head of security. I mean, he's a big beefcake guy. Dom DeSandro. Must be Italian or something. Fragile.
Even wears an Italian flag on some of his outfits.
Yeah, he's a badass. Now, I mean, they got shirts being made up for him as well. But I don't think he. I don't think he did anything wrong. I really don't. I mean, now if he goes after Greenlaw and starts punting, then yeah, I mean you've got to step away. But I don't think he did anything wrong initially, unless you're telling me security guys cannot stand where he was standing when the whole altercation began.
Yeah, I certainly don't blame him for trying to break things up. My last question, as far as
sure, he
game,
appreciates that. Phone.
Yeah, you're welcome, Dom. You earned that one. Chico, fair or foul, Kyle Shanahan is the NFL Coach of the Year right now. It's his to lose.
Kyle Shanahan is the. Okay, so I'm trying to think. I mean, D'Amico Ryans. I mean, nobody would argue with Kyle Shanahan getting it, but you also look at teams that had no business, or that we thought would have no business being where they're at, are where they're at, and that's, to me, that's the Houston Texans, who the Browns are going to face here in a few weeks, and C.J. Stroud. D'Amico Ryans, it wasn't that long ago that not only didn't they have a whole lot of talent, but the front office was a mess, and they had, as my good buddy Jack Easterby, who used to DM me, I'll tell you what, that is tough. I'd give it right now. I'd have to give it to D'Amico Ryans. That would be my call. And Kyle Shanahan has done a great job. They had that slump, and they got him back now, and they're playing great football. But D'Amico Ryans, to not only change and have success in the win column, but completely change the culture, he's done an amazing job. So for me, it would be D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah, I think that's sound logic, Chico. Definitely an improbable turnaround that I didn't see coming out of Houston. All right, I want to shift gears to Miami now. The Dolphins, of course, one of the most high-powered offenses in football right now. Fair or foul? Because yesterday we heard Eric Casillas come on and talk about why it's so hard for wide receivers to win an MVP award, just because quarterbacks in general carry so much more value to a football team based off of just how the game is and how things go. With that said, I want to ask you, Chico, fair or foul, Tyreek Hill is more important to the Miami Dolphins' success than Tua Tagovailoa.
Okay, so I heard, this is interesting, because this exact question was posed by Peter King. And so I'm going to parrot him. Pretty good guy to parrot. I mean, he's been around a while, knows his stuff. And he said that if you ask that question to Mike McDaniel, okay, you can lose Tua Tagovailoa, or you can lose Tyreek Hill. He doesn't want to lose either one of them. Make no mistake. But you can't lose your quarterback. And he said that's where the MVP vote goes to, a quarterback. And I get it. I mean, all of this is wrapped up in the same stuff that we constantly talk about, being criteria for whether it be an MVP of, Major League Baseball. Does it have, like, the last 10 winners of the NFL MVP are quarterbacks. And I think the last 8, if I'm not mistaken, the last winners of those 10, 8 of them were 1 or 2 seeds. So it's like I said before, we can say, like, well, this guy needs to be recognized. He had a great year. Okay, well, we have to. Does he check the following boxes? Is his team winning? Were they a 1 or 2 seed? And is he a quarterback? And therefore, I get it. I don't necessarily like it, but I get it. And then you have the most outstanding player, most outstanding offensive player, and all that stuff. But this would be the year, ironically enough, if Myles Garrett did not have this injury, and he's still got time left, but you just hope he's going to be 100%. If he happened to shatter the sack, not shatter, but he happens to beat the sack record, 22 and a half, and if Tyreek Hill busts Calvin Johnson's receiver record and gets into 2,000, then I think you have a case for one of those guys. And I think this is the year for it. But people are even still saying, no, even if that happens, it's got to go to a quarterback. It's to each his own as far as the criteria.
Yeah, I mean, if you're entering a playoff game without Tyreek Hill, I feel like you could still win that game. If you're entering a playoff game without Tua, I don't think you can win that game.
Right.
So there definitely is a difference there. Not last thing, I have more, but another NFL thing that I want to ask.
By the way, I'm being told that I was trolled by that. Big Mike apparently is. I don't follow Twitter that closely, where I know all the trolls, but now I don't know if he's trolling. Go ahead, Bo.
I mean, it's just such a preposterous take that it wouldn't surprise me if he just wanted to get a rise out of you.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you. I keep forgetting to ask you this, Chico, because on Monday Night Football, Jake Browning, with arguably one of the most surprising, successful performances of the season out of a quarterback, let alone backup, thus far. Fair or foul, are you buying stock in Jake Browning as a good NFL quarterback? He looked very good on Monday.
He looked very good. I'm going to go foul, and I think it's the same. We need to be, even with Joe Flacco, who looked incredible, and now his career and his narrative's completely different because he has had great success. Jake Browning is not, and is a career backup. But when guys become backups or are career backups, I know I've said this 100 times, they're backups for a reason. They can have good games, but what happens the next game or the next game after that? Like, it's stacking them, and that's where, okay, well, they're backups. I think Jake Browning, one thing about Jake Browning, and we heard this when Joe Burrow went down. One, he's an extremely intelligent guy. Two, he does not get rattled at all. And, like, they're like, you want to talk about Burrow being, like, he's the same way. Like, he just doesn't get rattled. Now, he doesn't have the talent of Joe Burrow, but that's key. He has that mindset where, okay, if called upon, I can't, oh, my God, it's my turn. So that is going for him. He does have some mobility as well. But I can't say I buy in. One game? No, I can't.
Now, okay, I'm not asking you to buy in. I mentioned I was shocked by that, but does that performance make you any more concerned for that Browns-Bengals matchup last week of the year? I think it was going to, because it's in Cincinnati, and you felt like after Burrow went down, that was just...
This is one that I'm going to have to reserve judgment until we get to that. I mean, look, if it has playoff implications, and it probably will, the question is, will it be for both teams or just one team? But if it has playoff implications, I'm going to be nervous anyway. But I need to see, like, if Jake Browning goes on a tear, I mean, we've all seen, like, Nick Foles has had that. It's more the exception than the norm, which is why I always kind of laugh when a quarterback goes down. They're like, oh, you got to call up and just print out Nick Foles. You got to call. Well, okay, he didn't just continue to do that. He then went in the tank, and that's why he's a backup and whatever. But I need to see more before I even start saying, I'm more nervous about Sunday than I am 5 weeks from now. I want to hey, I'm a disciple of Kevin Stefanski. One game at a time, baby. One game at a time.
1-0. Just go 1-0. All right, Chico. So the Washington Commanders have, I don't want to call it a dumpster fire because there are more dumpster fire-esque organizations out there in the NFL right now. But it seems like a messy situation from looking from the outside. Now, Sam Howell was their starter going into this year, and according to Jeremy Fowler, the Commanders are strongly considering riding with him for next season as their starter. Now, Sam Howell has quietly had a very strong year if you look at the numbers.
They like him. Some of them do. Yeah. They like him.
He's second in the league in pass yards, already approaching 3,500. He's accounted for 21 touchdowns, 18 passing. He's also been sacked 76 times, or he's been sacked 58 times, and he's on pace to break the record of 76. Fair or foul, if you're the Commanders, you like rolling, or if you're a Commanders fan, do you feel good about Sam Howell as your quarterback for the foreseeable future?
I mean, I don't think anyone feels good about Sam Howell yet because I think initially you say Sam Howell. Okay, well, Sam Howell. Here's what I would say, though. He has had some really good games. Now, he's had some bad games, and that's, par for the course. It's easy to look at that stat about the sacks and go, man, the offensive line, he holds onto the ball for a long, long time. And that's something that, if it's a young guy, maybe he gets coached out of him or he gets, young guys usually do because they're afraid to make that interception. So I'm going to say foul, though. I think right now, if I'm a Commanders fan, I got to see what direction this organization is headed, head coach and all that. Like Sam Howell, I'm lukewarm on, but they just have many bigger issues to worry about right now.
Yeah, they do. And I do wonder, Chico, if you were to bolster that line, what kind of a quarterback would you get? Because he's to be that productive already with such a tumultuous offensive line, it's downright impressive.
Okay, but Boom, did you just hear what I said? No, you didn't.
I heard you say that they have more things to focus on than
No. Did you hear what I said before that? He does hold on to the ball very long.
Okay.
So, that always contributes to getting sacked. I'm not saying that the offensive line is great. It's not. But, he does contribute. There's some culpability from him, too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that that's something that him being a young quarterback, he can certainly improve upon. But jury's still out.
So you got a man crush on Sam Howell, too. It's all right, Bo.
No, I mean, if I'm the Commanders, I would have said they should move on from him.
Okay.
Honestly.
All right.
I think the ceiling is too low for me to feel good about. Like, this guy
is
could
way
be
too
elite.
much Sam Howell talk, by the way.
All right,
Way
well then,
too
how about
much.
we talk a little LeBron, Chico?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's move on.
So LeBron in his post-game press conference was basically asked about like the longevity of his career, and he gave an interesting quote that I think even he was pretty proud of himself for coming up with. Take a listen.
Had his battle with Father Time that for so long has everybody said has been undefeated. So, trying to give him one loss.
Chico, fair or foul? LeBron James plays at least 3 more seasons. I mean, he's shown no signs of slowing down.
You know what this is all about? It's all about Bronny. He wants to play. He's made no secret of it. He wants to play with Bronny. Now, there are some, things that figure into that beyond just LeBron. But first of all, let me say this. Anybody, I don't care what your opinion is of LeBron, and I know some people here still even, hate him. I love LeBron. I do. Did he do some things that kind of, oh boy, but the guy is, first of all, not so much even what he did here, which has been amazing, but the fact that he has not slowed down at all. Look at his numbers. Watch him play. He's just as good now as he was 5 years ago. I mean, people might say, well, he's not as explosive, but the numbers and the importance, the reason why, we talk about game management and load management, all that stuff. The Lakers cannot afford to have him on the bench because without him, they're nowhere near the same team. Like, he's still that important and still that great. So 3 more years, will his body hold up? Yes, it will. He'll continue to do what he does, cryo chambers, and he spends a lot of money on it. He works his ass off. But really what this is boiling down to, is it going to work out where he can play with Bronny? Is Bronny going to make it to the NBA? If he does, you can bet LeBron's going to play a few more seasons.
I wonder if he has aspirations to play with Bryce as well.
I don't know about that.
I mean, it's only a couple extra years.
Right.
But
yeah, that's
okay. Whatever. We'll leave that one there.
Thanks,
Chico,
man.
last one for today's fair or foul.
Yeah.
I would be remiss not to play this quote from Stephen Vogt.
Yeah.
As he was interviewed by MLB Network Radio, and he was talking about sort of the role that Terry Francona has played with him so far in this process, as getting his feet wet, becoming acclimated. Take a listen.
Okay, I will.
What kind of resource has Tito been so far?
He's been phenomenal. I mean, throughout the interview process, they vetted me so deeply coming from Cleveland. I heard from people I hadn't talked to in 10 years, hey, I got off the phone with somebody from Cleveland. Like, what? How'd they get
How'd
to
they
you?
find you?
Yeah. So, but so I called Tito and asked him the questions I had about Cleveland, and he had nothing but phenomenal things to say about the entire group. And one of those things that it just confirmed what I was feeling, and Tito has helped me since. We haven't spoken a whole lot because I've been trying to figure out how to swim with my hands tied behind my back. But he's made himself available to me as much as I want as a resource. He said, I'm not going to look over your shoulder, not going to tell you what to do, but just know I'm a phone call away anytime. I want to see you succeed, and I want to see Cleveland win. So couldn't be more thankful for Tito.
I didn't actually think of a question for that one. I just really love that.
You never really do think of a question.
The hands tied behind his back.
No. I think he was just saying everything coming. He's at the winter meetings. He's got he's now all of a sudden he's the manager. There's 2 takeaways from this, because I knew you didn't have a question. Like I said, I can tell right away when you start talking about a particular subject if you have a question, because you immediately go like this. You look to the ceiling. So.
Help me, God, please.
Yeah. Is there a question anywhere here? But I'm not surprised he said that about Tito, and I absolutely 100% believe that, yes, Tito has said that to him, and Tito will do that if need be. I also believe that Tito will, he's not going to force himself. He realizes it's his to navigate. The other thing that I take away, and we'll ask Zach Meisel about this when he joins here in a little bit, Stephen Vogt is so, I mean, you can just feel the energy. And, Tito, look, we talk about father time and all that stuff. And, Tito finally caught up to him. And I'm not just talking physically, just everything. Because he always had that desire, but eventually it's like, okay, I got to get away from this. And you can just feel with Stephen Vogt. Now, I know it hasn't translated to W's, and it doesn't mean that all of a sudden, because Stephen Vogt is energized and has a lot of good energy, that they're going to produce prolific home run hitters. But damn it, if you're looking to continue what Tito had, I'm really intrigued with Stephen Vogt. Like I said, I can't sit here and tell you, like, this has to be, this is what it's going to be, and this is how, but man, he brings a lot of that. Everything you heard about him, put it that way, everything you've heard about him is pretty much right there in that quote.
Yeah, I really wanted you to hear that clip. And just also, not only that and how easy it is to tell how personable and charismatic of a guy Vogt is, but the role of Tito Francona in the growth of this organization and the cultivation in the Vogt era. Just love to hear it. I wanted to share it with you, Chico.
Thanks, Bo. I appreciate it. Got the warm and fuzzies now. All right. We will take a break. We come back. Speaking of baseball, nice little segue there. We will continue the baseball theme with our buddy Zach Meisel of The Athletic, talking about the winter meetings and may or may not have performed at the Grand Ole Opry. I don't know. I heard, I've heard through the grapevine. I do have sources still in Nashville. So we'll ask him about all of that and what is ahead for Stephen Vogt and company. That's coming your way. Chico Borman Show, more to come on this Thursday right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Alrighty, welcome back, folks. If you need bet credits for football season, we all do. The Big Play Network presented by Tipico Sportsbook. The Tipico Sportsbook app has your traditional bets like the money line, spread, and point totals, but also lock in player props and check out our Big Play boosts every single week to back your favorite Cleveland teams and athletes with the best odds in Ohio. Get in the action. Load up for football season using promo code BIGPLAY100. That'll get you $100 in bet credits on us, plus a $30 dog pound bet. Bet with the Big Play crew all season long with Tipico Sportsbook. Looking very studious. It's my boy, Zach Meisel. Right, Meisel. We head out to the old Zoom machine, and our buddy Zach Meisel, who covers the Guardians for The Athletic and recently had some time in Nashville. Now, Zach, I have heard through the grapevine, and I know you're very humble and very modest, but I've heard through the grapevine that you had a stirring rendition appearance at the Grand Ole Opry while you were there. Can you comment on that, please?
We both know I was too busy stuffing my face with Nashville hot chicken to get to the Grand Ole Opry. Let's be honest.
Is it really? Do they really have great hot chicken down there?
Yeah, I feel like with anything, it becomes too popular, and then the people who created it kind of get jaded about how mainstream it's become.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, Hattie B's that's as good as it gets, man. The problem is you don't have to go to Nashville anymore to get it.
Is there when you were there, was the line was it one of those where you said, "Oh my God, this is going to be like a 45-minute wait. I'm not doing this."
No, I've had that before. You know, we never talk sports.
No.
When we get together.
This is good. It's like hello, Zach. How the hell are you?
My favorite memory is I had a buddy's bachelor party in Nashville. Ooh. And I think they went to get Hattie B's the first day, and there was like a multiple hour wait for it. So instead they did catering. And
oh, nice.
I mean, it was like hundreds of chicken tenders from mild to, I think it's called Shut the Cluck Up.
We cannot say that on the Chico Borman Show. This is a family show, Zach, for crying out loud.
I didn't say anything bad.
Oh, we know which. Boom. I can't take this guy anywhere, you know? All right. Zach, I apologize. I kind of derailed us there, but I like to do that with you just because I know deep down you're like, Chico, just shut up and get to your damn questions. Okay. So Boom's laughing. So the winter meetings ended on Wednesday. First of all, let me ask you, just in general, the whole Shohei Ohtani, like, double secret, you can't say anything. What was up with that? And was it could you kind of tell just by talking to people and whatnot that it was really strange the way that whole thing was being handled by his team?
Yeah, I mean, usually you have marquee free agents available. You have news breaking reporters milling around the hotel lobby trying to run into anyone who might have a tidbit of information, and people have loose lips this time of year. With Ohtani, anyone involved except the Dodgers manager, Dave Roberts,
he might not have been able to. Might not have been able to fly back to L.A. with the team after that.
Everyone is so careful to say anything that might come back to haunt them that it's created. I've never seen anything like this. I mean, it's everything is shrouded in secrecy, and yet if you were a GM of a team who was pursuing Ohtani, wouldn't you spill that another team met with him?
Yes.
Or try to sink another team's chances. So I don't think anyone actually knows how strict Ohtani and his camp are about all of that. The thing is, nobody knows anything about this guy. And he hasn't spoken publicly in 4 months now, including after he won the MVP unanimously. So everything is a mystery. And I don't know. I'm not really worried about Cleveland going after him. So it's kind of fun to just sit back and watch.
So some national guys wrote columns. I think Ken Rosenthal was one, and a few other ones saying, like, my gosh, he's missing a golden opportunity, not only for himself, but also for baseball. And the theme was baseball meetings. The winter meetings used to be fun. Were they fun? When was the last time they were fun? And what?
Never.
No, it wasn't.
No, that's like, I respect those guys. It's kind of self-serving, right? I mean, if you take a step back, and maybe it's easy for me to say because I'm not a big national newsbreaker who's got to keep tabs on every single transaction coming across the wire, but I mean, this is more fun. Like, you had the Blue Jays GM was supposed to meet with his beat corps on Monday afternoon, and an hour before meeting with them. And what happens at the winter meetings is the GM or president of your team, you go upstairs with them to their hotel suite, you talk shop for a half hour, an hour, and you go on with your day. Like, it's the best access you get all year. But an hour before they were supposed to meet, all the Blue Jays writers got an email with a Zoom link saying, here you go, Ross Atkins will be on this link in an hour. And they're like, what's going on? We're supposed to meet him in person. And he gets on the Zoom link. He's got a whiteboard behind him so you can't tell where he is. Every question is asking, what are you doing? Why are you not here? Where are you? And he's dodging. He's being evasive. And so, of course, everyone's going to assume, okay, well, you're somewhere meeting with Shohei Ohtani. And like that kind of thing, you don't get that. If it's a normal free agent, normal circumstances at the winter meetings, it's maybe they're on site. Their agent certainly is on site. You're meeting with teams. Rumors float out there. You know it's down to this number of finalists, and then they sign. Like, it's pretty formulaic at this point. This is unlike anything baseball's had. We should be embracing that and making it fun.
So as someone who really, I mean, the Shohei Ohtani story in terms of on the field is amazing. And even, over the last couple of seasons, some have tried to, well, it's not. No, it is. It's a huge deal what he's done. That said, though, Zach, 550 to 600 million for a guy, and I think his team is also being very, 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 I don't know, very curious as far as how they're handling the surgery. Like, it wasn't, they're being very cautious about saying Tommy John. Nobody said Tommy John. It's just he had an elbow procedure. But 550 to 600 million, I love the guy, but he can't be worth that. He can't. Somebody's going to pay.
Well, that to a team's marketing department. I mean,
yeah.
He's got global appeal. There were so many reporters from Japan at the winter meetings, just trying to find any crumb they could to have an idea of where he's going to wind up, where they might wind up to follow his career for the next decade plus. I mean, look, it's not my money. If I had $600 million,
you wouldn't be talking to me right now.
I probably would spend it on something other than a baseball player. But if you're going to spend $500 million, why not go $600 million? I mean, what's at that point, what's the difference? If you're willing to commit that much, then you might as well just be the team that signs him, right? I don't know. You can market the hell out of him. You assume he's going to pitch eventually again and be an elite hitter. He is a once in a lifetime player.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
If your owner is willing to grant you the money to do it, I don't know. It seems like it'd be kind of fun.
He's Zach Meisel covering the Guardians for The Athletic. Well, obviously a very easy transition here from $600 million contracts and Shohei Ohtani to Zach. What was your biggest takeaway as far as things that you heard, things you knew before you left for Nashville, and now what are your takeaways after leaving Nashville in terms of the Cleveland Guardians?
I mean, not much has changed. They have the number one pick. That was new. That
is big news. That is big news. Yeah, that should be celebrated.
Aside from the team itself, the roster, not a lot. I think what you see is not necessarily what you get, but they're going to make changes. It's going to be, they're going to have to get creative. They're going to have to make a trade. They're going to have to wait out any of the medium level free agents, top level free agents signing. And I say have to, but that it is choice. this is the ownership and the front office and the organization as a whole. This is the route that they have chosen to take, whether it's because of the TV deal, because of the market. I mean, you can cite anything you want to cite. This is what they're doing. So it's, I don't know. I look at this roster and there are obviously two glaring holes in the outfield. I do think there's a lot of young talent though. And I think, I can understand if fans are disappointed and frustrated because it seems like, first of all, the division is extremely winnable.
Yes.
Yep. And I think it's exciting to think about what guys like Tanner Bybee, Gavin Williams, Bo Naylor can do over a full season with the training wheels off. And you have Jose Ramirez, who's not getting younger, and you have Josh Naylor, and you have Stephen Kwan, and you have Tristan McKenzie if he's healthy. I mean, it's like there's a lot in place that you can build around. And I don't think they're like that far away from being a pretty legitimate contender in the American League. But I think they're going to have to get creative, and they're going to have to get a lot of internal improvement.
So can you explain to folks, because I think right now, and we heard about it during the season, I think people have heard blurbs every now and then about Bally's and television contracts. Can you give us the state of where the Guardians are right now with their television deal, and why is everything in flux?
Purgatory, pretty much. I mean, they're waiting on court proceedings to figure out if Diamond Sports Group, the company that owns Bally's, is going to drop. I think the Guardians and the Rangers are on the chopping block, which tells you, I mean, this is not the Guardians have year after year had pretty good TV ratings, and the Rangers just won the World Series. So the whole thing is a mess.
Wow.
If they are dropped, they'll have to find another provider to air their games, or presumably MLB. The challenge there is they don't know how much money they would make off of that. You're going to make some. They were owed about $60 million from Bally's next season. So if they don't get that, you get a percentage of it from somebody else, but they don't know if they should budget 40 million, 50 million, 55 million. So, they're very fiscally conservative. We know that. And they are risk averse, so this is not an organization that's going to be like, oh, we'll make some money, so let's not worry about that. Let's go sign 3 free agents. That might be what you or I would do, but that's not how they operate. So everything's in limbo. I think this is going to take a while to resolve itself. I think the hope is that by spring training, you have something in place, but nobody knows. And they can't, I don't think they're actively negotiating with other partners until they know whether or not it's going to be with Bally's.
So I think it's pretty obvious, and I know you said it earlier. If the Guardians are going to acquire some help in the outfield or whatever it might be, it's going to have to come via trade. Give us an idea of what the interest level is, lukewarm, whatever, for like Shane Bieber right now. Is there teams that you're hearing are interested, or is it really just kind of quiet on that front?
Interested, but he gets lumped in with Corbin Burns in Milwaukee, Tyler Glasnow in Tampa. So it's tough because he also carries injury risk, and he's got 1 year left. So you're not going to get a haul for him. And if you're the Guardians, is this your only way to clear money to go get somebody else to fix your lineup? He's due for about $12 million. And if you trade him, you're not trading him for the value he had 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, certainly 24 months ago. So it's tough. Do you want to sell low on him just so you can plug a different hole? Because then you're going to need starting pitching too. This is a team with some shaky depth. You're relying on 3 rookies, 4 if you include Xavier Curry. Tristan McKenzie basically missed the entire year. You need starting pitching depth regardless, I think. And so, it's difficult. Like I personally, I probably keep him. If you're out of it at the deadline, you could trade him then. You could let him walk at the end of the year and get a draft pick. So it's a tough scenario where I feel like if they do trade him, they're trading him just to trade him because he's not team's top choice, but there is interest just because I think Starting pitching's a hot commodity. Free agents cost 25, 30 million a year. And Bieber's a nice little stopgap for somebody. But, if you're going to get like 2 high A lottery tickets, like does that move the needle for you? It doesn't for me.
No, and it's funny you bring that up because I have been all along saying, hey, you got to move them. It's just business. I know we hate to talk about it, hate to do it, whatever. But and now I'm where you're at. Like if you have to sell low, and I think you hit the nail on the head. They are going to sell low if they will move him. It just, to me, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I wouldn't go that route. Let me ask you real quick, Scott Barlow. Because a lot of people said, wait a minute, they're paying this much for this guy, and then Cal Quantrill, and it really became an issue of, okay, follow the money. The deals that were made, Quantrill, they moved on from, but they really liked Scotty Barlow. Can you kind of take us through that move?
A little weird. They're scaling back in payroll. They don't have wiggle room, and then they add a 7th, 8th inning guy who's
really
due
liked him,
$7 million.
Yeah.
And only has 1 year of team control. He had an okay year last year. I think he got better as the year went on. He's an interesting dude. He throws 92, 93. It's not the fastball. He doesn't even throw it that much, but he just throws curveballs and sliders at you until you're frustrated and get yourself out. He had some really good years in Kansas City. I think the bullpen needed another reliable arm. So if you bring back the same group and add Scott Barlow, you figure a little better luck for Clase and maybe Stefan, Sandlin. It could be a good group. It was a really good bullpen 2 years ago. But it's weird. Is Barlow going to make 8% of your payroll? That seems kind of strange. And he's only here for a year. And then he becomes a free agent. So it's a little bit of a head scratcher.
I get the sense that, and they've done this before and they've actually, we talk about Clase, Corey Kluber, they moved on from him seemingly at the right time. Wasn't easy to do. Not the same as far as Cal Quantrill, but doesn't it feel like, you know what, this guy doesn't throw very hard. He doesn't get a lot of guys out via strikeout. He's had arm problems. It feels like one of those where, okay, this guy just isn't going to hold up. So if we really like this Scotty Barlow guy, regardless of what we're going to pay him and team control, we just don't think that Cal Quantrill, at the end of the day, it feels like they just didn't believe Cal Quantrill was going to be a viable option in terms of, every 5 days.
Yeah, his metrics always painted a scary picture. He just didn't strike guys out. The walk rate regressed last year. His stuff just isn't, it's not overpowering. It's not swing and miss stuff. It's crazy that he wound up in Colorado of all places, where I don't think his arsenal is going to play very well. It's tough because the one thing you could lean on him for is actually the one thing I feel like they're missing in the rotation, and that's a guy who can give you reliable innings, right? Just chew him up, give you 180. But he couldn't do that last year. He was injured. And so, yeah, I think they just felt like there were better uses for the money that he was in line to make. Now, it seems a little weird to say that, and then they're going to assign pretty much the same salary to a guy who's only going to give you 65, 70 innings out of the bullpen. But, if they can get Barlow back to a guy who has a 2.50 ERA, then I think I get it.
So you wrote that, listen, the Guardians, and I think every team is kind of operating this way. They're going to listen to every call. They should. How seriously do you think they are listening to teams that are interested in Emmanuel Clase?
Only seriously if it's something that will blow them away. I mean, I don't know. It's you get calls every day saying that your car's factory warranty is up or whatever, right? And you don't take it seriously, and sometimes it might say spam risk when you look at your phone.
That's
and
a great
still,
analogy.
There's something that you just pick up anyway. You're like, maybe it's an important call. I don't know. I think that's how they operate. Everybody calls them wanting Clase, wanting whoever is available every winter because they know how the Guardians operate. And they see it says spam risk, Chicago Cubs, but they say, oh, what the hell? We'll answer it. It's fine. And usually it goes nowhere. But if there is a team willing to give you the one thing that you have not been able to draft and develop for years and years and years, and that's a young, controllable, proven hitter outfielder, you have to listen, don't you? Like that's the one thing you can't get. You can find, I mean, maybe you can't find another Class A, but you can develop relief pitchers. You can plug that hole easier than the hole you've been trying to plug for 20 years. So I think if someone's willing to offer you the one thing you can't cultivate yourself, that's where they would actually hold court. But is that realistic? It's hard to say. I don't know. You'd have to find a team with a surplus and a really big bullpen problem, because I think a lot of teams feel like they can find a setup man or a closer much easier than they can find an outfielder.
First of all, again, I got to reiterate, fantastic analogy on Class A. We'll close with this. We played a clip while we were bringing you in from Stephen Vogt talking about Terry Francona and how he's reached out, but it's him, and he's going to navigate it himself. Obviously, he's got to do it for himself. But one of the things that stood out, and everybody has said it, you've written about it, is his energy, his enthusiasm. And I mean, in this clip, you can feel it. Now, I know that doesn't translate to W's. Who knows what it means? But in terms of just the energy and enthusiasm, I'm guessing you have seen that firsthand.
He just seems genuine.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way I can put it is I mean, it's amazing watching him like walk down the hallway in Nashville. He can't take more than a few steps without a former manager of his, a former teammate who's now a manager, just coaches he knows, front office people he knows. The guy is connected to everybody, and he has so many resources at his disposal just in looking for advice or like just connecting with people. It's really going to help him. And I think the big thing with him is he said he always wanted to be a manager, even dating back to like college days. And so he was always asking questions, and he's in such a good position after playing for so many teams, sticking around in the majors for so long. I mean, it really is like a fraternity where you network as much as you can, and then you have resources at your disposal, and you can get any question answered you might have. So for someone who just turned 39 years old, who retired 14 months ago, becoming a new manager, like, yeah, he's got the energy, he's got the personality. He should have the communication skills to help him navigate all the challenges that are going to get thrown his way. And there are going to be some growing pains for him too. But I think he's got so many connections that it's like that Rolodex is exactly what you want. You think about Terry Francona and the stops. I mean, he played for a ton of major league teams too in his decade in the majors, and then goes to Philly, goes to Boston. Those are teams with big payrolls. You're bringing in players, just churning the roster every year, coming to Cleveland. Think about how many connections he made over in 40 years in the game. And no matter who came to town in Cleveland, it's like people would pop in his office from the other side. Like, he knew everybody. Stephen Vogt is 25 years younger, but you can see similar elements there where, there are so many people across the sport who have great things to say about him. And so it might take a little while. He's going to have to learn a lot, but I think he's got a lot of the elements that you would want in a young aspiring manager.
So this was supposed to be a Christmas surprise, but Gulick and I went in and we got you a weekend getaway to Whistling Straits, play some golf, and just get away and kind of live it's a Gulick fantasy trip. you get to experience life as Gulick, our buddy Brendan Gulick. So I thought you would like that. Gulick's not going to be happy I shared it with you, but that is coming from old St. Nick. So enjoy that, buddy.
I'm sure you got a discount just by dropping his name.
Oh, you get, I mean, that, and you get, if you drop his name at Chipotle, forget about it. Like, he is You talk about endorsements all over the place. Yeah, you're in good shape. Zach, we appreciate you putting up with us. I know you had a busy time in Nashville, and like I said, Grand Ole Opry, you don't have to be humble, but I know you are. You really tore it up there, from what I understand. So we appreciate you as always. You look thrilled to be here, even more thrilled, Bohm, to say goodbye. Zach, happy holidays. Young Charlie, we hope Santa's good to him, and we'll talk to you again real soon, but certainly not as soon as I'm sure you would like to.
Stop. I actually have a nice time talking to you, and you always have to leave it on that note. Thanks, Chico.
You're the man, Zach. Thank you, buddy. Zach Meisel with The Athletic. Again, great job covering the Guardians. That is a phenomenal analogy with the Emmanuel Clase. You get your car company calls you and your warranty, and you see spam, and, well, yeah, whatever. That's people, Cubs, Clase, yeah, okay, well, whatever. Yeah, but if they blow somebody away, if they blow them away and say, okay, hey, we've got this prized outfielder, and we've got now all of a sudden they're listening, but all is pretty much quiet on that front. But they did get the number 1 pick, and I'm not poo-pooing that. It's a big deal. They got the number 1 pick in this summer's amateur draft. Who it might be, who knows? We'll see how it plays out. Bohm, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I'm really excited about that first overall pick, Chico.
You are. Do you
I
have
am.
any guesses, any predictions on who that might be?
I think they're taking a bat. I know we had this discussion, and look, I understand your logic.
Yeah.
Just like if you have a potential to get a superstar bat and you find your guy, don't hesitate. Pull the damn trigger.
So I should mention before we get out of here, we were talking about festivities going on here at Burke Lakefront Airport. There was, I think, a veterans get-together, and they had excellent food. It smelled excellent in here. So as soon as we went to that break I was talking about earlier, Bohm, I noticed you could have very easily gone left to fill your water. You went right, and I'm guessing you were trying to do some grazing. Fair or foul, Bohm, you were grazing the buffet table, or what was left of it.
Well, I drank through all my waters, and I needed to relieve myself, but I will admit that I did want to see what the spread was like.
You did. See, I
wanted to see. I didn't actually take anything.
You were trying to talk him up a little bit.
It was on the way to the restroom.
You had some charm. You're like, hey, I'm a rock star. That's right.
Before we wrap real quick, Chico, I just want to shout out YouTube comments.
Yeah.
Diesel saying, who would hate that guy? Zach Meisel. Yeah, phenomenal stuff from Meisel.
Oh, nobody. Yeah. Yeah. Me. That's what I was saying. People hate me. But Meisel, no, he's untouchable. He's very good at his job, and thankfully, we actually do have similar senses of humor. One of my favorite guys, without a doubt, one of my favorite guys. So thank you, Diesel. Is there another one in there you wanted to read, or just that one? Okay, hey, that's all right. One and done. That's how we roll here at the Chico Borman Show. All right, Bohm, excellent work. Zach Meisel, we appreciate him coming on. Obviously, earlier in the show, we talked to Dan Lobby with Cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. Tomorrow, we're going to go around the NFL, certainly getting ready for the Browns and the Jaguars, but also a lot of stuff, a lot of chaos, a lot of turmoil, and we kind of like a good TMZ story. So Eric Edholm is going to join us from NFL.com and the NFL Network. We'll talk to him in the noon hour. So until then, you're almost to Friday, kids. For all of us here at Big Play Sports, I'm Chico Borman. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. See ya.